Special Envoy Hans Grunberg concludes a visit to Riyadh and Oman to push for truce expansion. The United Nations agreed truce reduces offensives but not humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Houthi mines continue to claim civilian lives in Hodeidah Governorate. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fouad. The Yemeni government announced that they received a new proposal from the UN Special Envoy for Yemen regarding the extension of the truce. Nabil Jamil, a member of the government negotiating team, pointed out that opening the main roads in Taiz and paying the salaries of employees in militia-controlled areas are on top priorities of the UN proposal. The UN Special Envoy concluded a visit to Riyadh and Oman where he discussed the Yemeni issue. During his meeting with the Houthi rebels in Sana'a, they renewed their demands for the necessity of improving the benefits of the UN truce as a condition for accepting its extension and expansion. This report gives more details.
In order to address ongoing efforts to implement and extend the ceasefire, UN Special Envoy to Yemen Hans Grunberg met with Dr. Rashad Al-Alimi, President of Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council in Riyadh. President Al-Alimi was briefed by Grunberg on the most recent events and the UN's proposed truce. The United Nations is working hard to extend the ceasefire in Yemen in order to achieve a comprehensive ceasefire and a long-term political settlement. During his visit to Riyadh, the Special Envoy met with senior Saudi officials who expressed Saudi Arabia's support for these initiatives. Furthermore, Special Envoy traveled to Muscat to meet with Badr al-Busaidi, Oman's Minister of Foreign Affairs, and other key Omani officials. He praised Oman for its critical commitment to UN activities. Grunberg also met with Houthis' lead negotiator in Muscat, where they discussed the UN plan to extend and broaden the agreement beyond October 2, 2022. In all of his conversations, the Special Envoy underscored the significance of a lengthier extension to allow Yemenis to make progress on a broader set of priorities and to give them time to prepare for inclusive political negotiations, including a statewide ceasefire. Grunberg said, "We are at a crossroads where the possibility of a return to conflict is real. I'm pushing the parties to pick an alternative that prioritizes the interests of the Yemeni people." The UN envoy for Yemen has warned that a return to fighting is a real prospect, urging warring parties to accept a longer extension of the existing truce, which is set to expire next month. In a statement, Grunberg said he discussed a UN proposal to extend the truce for a longer period of time to allow Yemenis to make progress on a broader set of priorities. Reopening the roads of Taiz and other provinces are part of the UN-brokered truce, which took effect in early April and was extended twice, the second time until October 2. The truce enabled for the partial reopening of Sana'a Airport to commercial flights and the entry of fuel boats into the port of Hodeidah. Yemen's deadly civil war began in 2014 when the Houthis took control of Sana'a and parts of northern Yemen, forcing the government into exile. The conflict has resulted in one of the world's greatest humanitarian catastrophes. More than 150,000 individuals, including approximately 14,500 civilians, have been murdered. The international community should intensify efforts to end the suffering of the people of Yemen as soon as possible.
The European Union reiterated its support for the unity of the Presidential Leadership Council. The European Union said that all efforts should now focus on extending the humanitarian truce, which is set to expire on the 2nd of October. The truce in Yemen has contributed to downsize the numbers of casualties and fighting missions since April. However, the truce did not seem to have eased the human suffering in the country. More on this story is within the following report.
The United Nations brokered truce agreed in April is the longest standing in more than 7 years of war in Yemen. The truce is said to have reduced fighting between warring factions by up to 60%. It, however, has not stopped the disastrous humanitarian situation from deteriorating further, with more than 25 million of the 30 million population are facing the risk of famine. Humanitarian organizations and United Nations aid agencies have had to scale down their efforts in Yemen due to the lack of funding. After 8 years of war involved with many local and regional parties, Yemen is not getting attention. The global support to Ukraine, according to experts, is incomparable to Yemen's crisis, especially in humanitarian aid and taking of refugees. The United Nations humanitarian chief Martin Griffiths told the Security Council that more than 7 years of war, some 19 million people are acutely food insecure. An estimated 160,000 people are facing catastrophe, and more than 500,000 children are severely malnourished. Global inflation added to the woes in the war-ravaged country, after the food prices have risen 30% this year. As a result, food agencies have been forced to cut back their assistance, so Yemenis this month are getting only two-thirds of their previous rations. At the end, any renewal of the United Nations mediated truce should be conducive to dialogue. However, no efforts to start a serious dialogue to end the conflict have borne fruit yet. In the meantime, ordinary Yemenis continue to suffer because of the war that has already destroyed Yemen's economy. According to the World Bank, the Yemeni economy has shrunk by an estimated 8.5% in 2020 and an additional 2% in 2021. These factors have resulted in a massive rise in the cost of everyday commodities, with bread costing 6 times more than usual.
أبي مات بشارع 40 دحين أنا أشقى على أسرتي مع باقي اللي أنا أصرف عليهم كل شيء. أنا اسمي أنس وصيد سيف عمري 12 سنة. أنا أشتغل بورشة حديد من الساعة 7 للساعة 6. أحيانا أسرع، أحيانا أقص، أحيانا أرنق، أحيانا أنقش، أي حاجة أنا أعمل. لا الساعة لما تبين الساعة 6 أوقف. أنا وقفت الدراسة عشان ما في أحد يشقى على أسرتي. أدرس أخواني الباقي من دون 4 وأنا الخامس. أحلم إن أفتح ورشة أبي وأشقى على أسرتي وأندي لهم مصاري. وأدرس أخوتي لاقى الجامعات وأطبخ أي شيء.
The Iranian-backed Houthi militia launched 2 attacks on the western coast fronts. The military media reported that units of the joint forces in Hais defended a Houthi attack from the south of Hodeidah on Tuesday evening. In a second attack, the Houthis failed to penetrate Hais front, and the rebel militia incurred with human and material losses among their ranks. 2 soldiers were killed and 7 of the joint forces were wounded during those confrontations. Houthi mines continue to claim civilians' lives in Hodeidah. More than 19 civilians were reported to be killed or injured only during the last couple of days. The following report has more on this.
Death awaits civilians everywhere, especially in the villages newly liberated from the Houthi militia south of Hodeidah, where the number of landmines accidents has greatly increased. The village of Shab Zuhair, northwest of Hais, was the scene of a new incident that took the life of Ali Muhammad Zuhair, 28 years old, as a result of the explosion of a Houthi landmine that also injured the young Ali Muhammad, 25 years old, as well as the child Bakil Ahmed Zuhair, 10 years old, while they were working on a truck that transports stone from the valley.
Landmines spread throughout this valley. We call for demining the entire area. The village has been plagued with landmines for so long. Only yesterday, 2 people were killed due to mine explosion. One of the victims was a young girl.
The landmine crimes are not coming to an end. In fact, within 1 hour of the first incident, a mine planted by the hands of the Houthis in one of the farms of the village of Al-Dunain, to the northeast of Al-Khawkha district. It exploded and the citizen Muhammad Ayyash Dil was wounded and his truck broke.
This village, Bani Zuhair, is plagued with landmines everywhere. 3 days ago, a mine exploded and caused damage to people. Today, the truck was exploded. There are still plenty of them to be dismantled.
In less than 72 hours, Houthi landmines in Hais and Al-Khawkha districts killed and wounded 7 civilians. Most of them are children. As for the militia-controlled areas, more than 12 people were killed and wounded by the mines that the militia had previously planted, including 2 dead, 8 children wounded in Al-Jah area, and 2 others in Hudaydah. Houthi landmines still creates a nightmare that haunts the lives of civilians in Sahel al-Tuhami. At a time when the United Nations, its envoy to Yemen, and the Unmaha team were unable to convince the militia to hand over mined maps in the liberated areas to which civilians returned to after the militia was expelled from them, which doubles the risk of taking hundreds of innocent civilian lives.
Civil servants in Yemen have had no salaries for years. This has made a great deal of them to shift their careers in order to make a living and provide for their families. This report has more details.
The war that the Iran-backed Houthi militia has ignited since coup on September 21 has assassinated all causes of stability and forced thousands of employees to change their lifestyle.
أنا أولاً جزء من المجتمع الموجود على هذا الوطن.
I am part of the community, so anything that they suffer from affects me too. Yemen was a stable country. Then the war happened, so we all got displaced. We tried to live and adapt to this new life, but everything changed. The life cycle doesn't stop and we have been through many circumstances, but we try to resist this as much as possible.
The destruction of state institutions as a result of the Houthi coup and the policy of exclusion participated by the militia prevented all chances of stability in the absence of a real meaning of the state.
يجب أن يكون هناك عقيدة بأنه إذا أردنا التغيير يجب أن نغير من الداخل.
There has to be belief in peace for everything to change. We have to meet and communicate with other parties. The autocracy rule has ended in September 26. Yemen is a democratic country, and no one can rule Yemen alone.
بعد 21 سبتمبر ليس هناك أي مؤسسات.
After 21 September, the Houthis destroyed the state organization. Yemen became divided and the social community fell apart.
The catastrophe of the 21st of September turned the reality of Yemenis into a real nightmare, and the suffering of millions of Yemenis who are living it every day were turned upside down.
Coming next. In Taz, rocky cracks threaten residents of a village and cause panic. Welcome back. The World Food Programme said that they provided food assistance for thousands of people in Yemen. Yet such assistance is not enough, and with the conflict in Ukraine escalating, which caused global food crisis, this has overshadowed the humanitarian situation in the country. The following report gives more details.
Yemeni people are going through a critical humanitarian crisis. They have the worst statistics when it comes to health and food security, especially after the suspension of the World Food Programme support earlier this year due to funding shortfalls. Yet, World Food Programme is providing food assistance for 250,000 Yemenis, as the United Nations announced plan to maximize support for Yemen, and they are supported by a €30 million contribution. The UN report revealed that 19 million people suffer from food insecurity in Yemen, while 160,000 people live in famine-like condition, and 3.5 million people are acutely malnourished. Fortunately, the support led by the World Food Programme assisted more than 3 million Yemeni people. The WFP said in its official report that it will resume work to complete assets in 40 districts across 9 Yemeni governorates, reaching more than 250,000 people through food assistance projects. It also announced resuming its school feeding program and dispatch feeding communities in August. However, due to a lack of funding and community arrival delays, World Food Program will only be able to assess around one-third of the planned school children number over the current semester. UNICEF and WFP are working together as a supply partners, and they have assisted more than 37,000 people with nutrition kits, which include ready-to-eat food, especially that 18 of the 22 governorates have been impacted by the heavy rains that caused widespread floods across the country, with Ma'rib and Hajjah governorates are considered the most affected. The World Food Program also assisted about 400,000 Yemeni children and mothers with nutrition assistance under its treatment of moderate acute malnutrition program. The international community are putting great efforts to ease the suffering on the Yemeni people. But is the Houthi militia going to stop causing the suffering? This is what we hope for.
In Taz, dangerous cracks have threatened residents of Al Asaba village. The cracks become bigger day after day and approach homes of locals, causing panic among them. The residents are calling the concerned authorities to act immediately and deal with this problem. The following report gives more details.
Here in these mountainous hills, located in the village of Al-Asba, in Al-Khubal area, Taiz Governorate, these cracks in the ground, which have been expanding since a year ago, have become a great fear and concern for the people of these villages, who do not know the reason behind them until now.
بدأت هذه التشققات في نهاية موسم فصل الخريف.
The cracks started to appear at the end of the fall, and by the time it continued to grow. In the beginning, it used to be far from our houses, and now it is close to our homes, which made us panic. That rock would collapse at any time. The rocks are so heavy and cracks are so broad that amount to 500 square meters. We thought this was because of the rainfalls, but cracks keep crawling and we don't know what to do.
Citizens here say that the issue needs a quick intervention by the concerned authorities to send a team of stakeholders to clarify the causes of these cracks that are besieging citizens inside their homes on a daily basis, so that they can have the choice to stay or leave the area.
Cracks started small at the beginning, but now they widened and got closer to homes. We need experts to solve this crisis, as most of them only say it's a normal phenomenon. We live amid fear and anxiety. We need specialists to decide whether we stay or get evacuated from this area.
The people of the area are confused about what is happening from the cracks, and they fear the unknown fate. In light of the worries that the rocks will continue to fall in this area, the village of Al-Asba and its surroundings have great concern among the residents after the crawling of cracks to the land they live on, amid the silence of the concerned authorities.
The French embassy launched a development project in the fishing sector in the city of Mukalla, the capital of Hadramaut. The French ambassador to Yemen, Jean-Marie Safa, said a successful visit of an official delegation to the city of Mukalla culminated in the launch of such a project. The Yemeni government aid Germany have provided $20 million to support the fisheries sector and upgrading of Aden's port. In this regard, Deputy Minister of Planning discussed with representatives of the UN Development Programme preparations for the implementation of the project financed by the German Reconstruction Bank. Greenpeace International demanded the big oil companies to pay a share in safer tanker rescue plan. It said that a number of oil companies have announced record profits in the first 2 quarters of this year, yet none of them has provided funds to enact the UN salvage plan. Greenpeace added that these oil companies have the moral responsibility to fund the salvage operation to protect the people of Yemen and the Red Sea. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Special Envoy Hans Grunberg concludes a visit to Riyadh and Oman to push for truce expansion. The United Nations agreed truce reduces offensives but not humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Houthi mines continue to claim civilians' lives in Hodeidah gun raid. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.